What movie is a 10 out of 10? Haha, this one's gonna be good, and I hope I don't run into any spoilers. Story 1. Fargo, 1996. The performances in this movie by Frances McDormand, William H. Macy, and Steve Buscemi were all career-defining performances, but what I don't see mentioned enough is how the movie is an antidote for Tarantino's style of criminals. Pulp Fiction is out of this world, but it led to every director trying to write smart, well-read criminals who talk about TV and movies. A big example would be Bad Boys, whereas the Coens created idiotic criminals who keep making mistakes and aren't cool in any way. They even start the movie off by messing up their time for the meeting. I've watched this movie so much I think I could quote it in my sleep. I love what you said about the sort of class of criminal portrayed. That's also what I love about the TV show, especially season 1. Both Lester and Malvo are each different sorts of criminals, and they're both portrayed exceptionally. Lester is a selfish opportunist, the regular guy that turns to crime because he has an opportunity and wants to get his. Malvo, on the other hand, portrayed by Billy Bob Thornton, is just out of this world, almost like a trickster god in human skin, sowing chaos for no reason. His portrayal is both hilarious and chilling. Also, Marge Gunderson is one of my favorite movie characters of all time. Marge Sanuva Gunderson. The Coen brothers do such an amazing job of juxtaposing the mundane and folksy with their macabre in such a way that forces you to realize that the most disgusting and disturbing stories you've ever heard are populated with people that are so normal that if you met them, you'd think they were boring. The ending in particular, where Franny Mac is lying in bed with her husband and listening to him whine because his Mallard sketch was used for the 2-cent stamp, after she just unraveled this story of corruption and unaliving that ends with her walking up on some guy as he feeds someone else into a fracking wood chipper, is just... they're the best filmmakers of my generation. Also, the TV show derived from this universe is unstoppably great. Said this in another comment, but it's more remarkable than most people realize. Typically, the pregnant woman is a vulnerable figure in film. They literally flipped the script and made her the hero. That's what I loved so much about her character. We get to see her be an adorable little pregnant lady enjoying food and stuff, but then she's also a totally fearless, bad-to-the-bone person. Yeah, I love that movie. I love how everything is couched in that Minnesota accent. It's kind of hard to take everything kind of seriously, but they portray everything so normally and so realistically that you have to wonder that this whole crime spree and everybody is talking in this, what some people think is a funny accent. Story 2. The day before opening night, my friend and colleague Jim says to me, "We're going to a movie tomorrow night." "What movie?" "Not telling you." "What's it about?" "Not telling you." "Genre? Are you threatening me?" "What time are we leaving?" "That's more like it." I went in knowing zero about the movie, as in Notthing, other than the name. And that wasn't until after we bought the tickets. Going on the journey like that, not knowing anything, was one of the greatest gifts Jim could have given me. I was out of town the weekend it came out. All my college buddies went and saw it. As soon as I got back, they were all, "Dude, we're going to see The Matrix right now." Didn't tell me a single thing. I was lukewarm on the trailers. Practically forced me into the car. Movie blew my mind. Eternal props to my friends for not spoiling anything and forcing my dumb butt to go see it before anyone else could ruin it for me. My dad picked me up from school and was all excited about this new movie he saw the day before, and he was like, "We're going to watch it right now." I hadn't heard of it, but he was almost manic trying to tell me how great it was without spoiling it for me. I remember he failed to keep it in and explain the whole situation thing, but it didn't matter. That movie took 13-year-old me on a ride. I don't think that experience will ever be topped. Contrast with most trailers today where you know exactly what it's about and most of what will happen in 30 seconds. Oh, that movie was a revelation. Seeing that in the theater. I mean, I don't know if I'm not going to cast spoilers. I would say if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's got a very 90s sensibility, especially with the music, but it's still amazing. And it's an action movie and in ways kind of thought-provoking too, but beautiful. It's an anime come to life, basically. Amazing. Story 3, City of God. I can't really explain why because I haven't studied films and stuff. I can explain. Because it's a once-in-a-lifetime film made with amateur actors about once-in-a-century memoirs written by a guy that never wrote anything again. It bounces seamlessly between a comedy, a crime drama, art house, biopic, documentary, and a quirky romance movie. It's gritty, grimy, kind of horrifying, yet hilarious, uplifting, and a riot to watch. Also, the cinematography at times reaches a fever-inducing pace, or cleverly conveys some other contextual messages, or plainly is just brilliant, with shots and production design coming together. The scene about the apartment is a standout. Perfect film. It's the best movie that I'll never watch again. That would be either Requiem for a Dream or House of Sand and Fog for me. I never got that feeling from City of God, though. Guess I'm forced to watch it again. I love telling the story of when I watched Requiem for a Dream. It was a couple months ago into freshman year of college. My roommates and I invited some girls from down the hall over to hang out before a party that night. We had a couple hours to take care of, so we decided to watch a movie and have some drinks. One of the girls looked through my roommate's DVD collection. He had like 200 DVDs and was like, "Hey, this one with the eye on the cover looks cool. Let's watch it." Most of us had never heard of it, so we agreed. When the movie started, it was a typical college hangout. We were drinking and chatting and just half watching. By the middle of the movie, nobody was drinking anymore. By the end, we were all completely silent other than the occasional, "Holy hell." When the movie ended, we all just kind of sat in silence for a few minutes. Nobody knew what to do or say, but we all knew we were in unspoken agreement that we were not going to a party that night. I've heard about the impact of Requiem for a Dream. City of God, I keep hearing about. I haven't seen that one, and I guess I should see it if it's going to be that much of a roller coaster, but I guess I need to prepare for it. Story 4, Amadeus. Man, why the hell does Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart have such a cool name? His baptized name is even cooler. Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart. I still marvel at the scene where Salieri is looking over Mozart's music and is hearing the music in his head as he's reading the notes. Can people really do that? I can read "I still marvel at," and I'll know in my head what that'll sound like if spoken. And if I tell you, imagine that James Earl Jones or Gilbert Gottfried is speaking the comment that I'm writing here. I'm sure you can hear them in your head to some extent. It's not too different from music scores. Anyone who can read sheet music should be able to recognize a piece without having to physically play this bit first. Not instantaneously, obviously, but probably after a couple of seconds of looking at it. Edit. Obviously, there's people on both sides of the spectrum, but I believe this amount is what you'd consider normal. You don't need to have years of musical background or be awfully gifted to hear parts of a score. Oh man, I seriously did not have that scene in the back of my mind when writing the comment. So your reply read like the most random generic response ever. Glad I Googled it. Beautiful reference. I literally only chose Eine kleine Nachtmusik because it's easily recognized. Gotta love how we just recreated that scene. Story 5. 12 Angry Men. Every time I watch it, I find new details to admire. Edit. The 1957 version. And be sure to check out 12 Angry Men analysis by Sherbrek. 12 out of 12. Or realizations. As a kid, I treated it like a logic puzzle. Like if you paid enough attention, you could figure out the case, figure out the right answer. That, of course, was missing the point. A lot of modern lawyers and judges believe the jury actually made the wrong choice in the movie, mostly based on how much circumstantial evidence there is against the defendant. Not to mention the fact that the jury does a ton of hypothesizing, and Juror 8 especially introduces new evidence which would definitely not be allowed under the judge's instructions. I don't see why. The case itself is circumstantial. Factor in, this is regarding the death penalty, and the strongest facet they have is eyewitness. The case is far too shoddy for anyone to think guilty when that's the result of a guilty verdict, which is why the death penalty is pretty smeg. The kid probably did it, and since it can't be concretely proven, unaliving him over probably is total hogwash. Story 6. Blazing Saddles. Mel Brooks is an absolute genius. I loved Mel Brooks' comment when a reporter said, "You couldn't have made that in current year, Brooks." "We couldn't then, but we did it anyway." I'm paraphrasing, but you get the point. I use "someone's gotta go back and get a buttload of dimes" way more often than I ever would have guessed. Okay, Jim, since you are my guest and I am your host, what are your pleasures? What do you like to do? Oh, I don't know. Play chess? Smash? Well, let's play chess. Funniest exchange ever, and the timing was perfect. Excuse me while I whip this out. You gotta remember that these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land, the common clay of the New West. You know, morons. The morons bit was ad-libbed by Gene Wilder, and the reaction from Cleavon Little is genuine. I love that. The movie is infinitely quotable. I have seen it dozens of times, including all the DVD extras. Some of the best satire to come out of the 20th century in any art form, in my opinion. Pryor was originally slated to play Bart, but was a tad unreliable for reasons. His writing is all over that script, though. For me, this is one of those rare comedies that I can laugh at on repeated viewings. I think it's kind of rare to see that nowadays. Also, as far as the racial humor, I believe someone had quoted that a lot of the African-American writers were writing a lot of the Jewish jokes, and a lot of the Jewish writers were writing a lot of the African-American jokes. So it's just one of those things where everybody was game for a laugh. Story 7. Alien, 1979. My favorite movie of all time. Aliens always gets mentioned, but the original was always the best. Sci-fi horror at its best. On that note about the sequel, the Alien Isolation game is the greatest sequel to the original. I might even say that it's the best thing out of that entire franchise above the original itself. Each frame is an art. That 1979 retrofuturism of the original is perfectly portrayed. And every aspect of the story is very faithful to the original source material. The music is spine-chilling and will have you gritting your teeth in fear at times. The use of lighting and sound design is next level. The alien's AI makes it feel like a truly living thing. Nowhere is safe, and neither will you feel safe at any point. If it's running after you, then you will be clenching your glutes from fear as if it were actually after you in real life. A number of times, I felt the primal urge to get up and run, and would jump into standing position with adrenaline flowing until I reminded myself that it's just a game. Often, I had to pause the game, which is the only real safe space, which will only just delay the inevitable at that point. It's a miracle that such a piece of art was made especially by the studio that did it. Alien Isolation will let you know how good this game is. Story 8. Saving Private Ryan. The scene where the medic is shot, and he has them show him where he's hit, and he cries out, "Oh my God, that's my liver!" He knows he's already gone. He asks for morphine. The fear in his voice has stayed with me ever since I watched that movie as a teenager. That was definitely a heavy scene to watch. Another scene that got me was when the comedian character was begging for his life while being stabbed. There's an amazing moment in the drunk tank era of Rooster Teeth where someone tells a story about their cousin surviving a shot to the liver, and Bernie goes, "The liver? That's what got Giovanni Ribisi." And then everyone just stops and looks at him, and he sheepishly goes, in Saving Private Ryan. Story 9. Aliens. Aliens and T2 are both 10 out of 10. The Abyss is great as well. James Cameron has had quite the run. Aliens is so good the script is fun to read. It's a masterclass on script writing. Tightly written, great payoffs throughout, and the pacing was on point. The movie itself did an almost unbelievably good job with the script, and the practical effects throughout were incredible. Watching the features for the film that go into the production is very worth it. So many simple solutions to practical effects. Michael Biehn having trouble getting the shotgun into the alien's mouth? Do it backwards and reverse the film in editing. Want to make a face hugger leap at the camera? 3 fast cuts of it on the ground, on some piece of set in between, and yanked on a string at the camera. Student film solutions on a Hollywood flick. Also, he made low-detail miniatures and used a video camera to do a moving storyboard for the effects sequences. And if you compare them, they're basically 1-to-1. The features really enrich my enjoyment of the film.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 10. The Matrix. Oh, hell. When this movie first came out, we had never seen anything like it. It's worth reposting a comment from a few months back just to talk about how great the first-time viewing experience was. The marketing and its lack of plot explanation were extremely important. The trailers did not explain the setup of the movie. The trailers gave you no context. They just showed you 20 or 30 seconds of people dressed in leather doing kung fu in ways we had never seen in a movie before. On our very first viewing, we had no idea what The Matrix was. We were also not used to superhero stuff in movies at that point. The very first X-Men movie wouldn't be out for another year, and so the intensity and timbre of the action sequences were a brand new, never-before-seen experience. Imagine having never seen a superhero movie in your life and watching this movie in a theater of a few hundred equally ignorant people watching the opening sequence with Trinity running from the agents. She's running off the wall. What the hell? Whoa. She's jumping from... What the hell? How did she do that? What the hell? The agent guy did it too? We were fresh. We were virginal. We were blown away. And the stinger of an ending with Keanu freaking flying with Rage Against the Machine blasting had us leaving that theater flushed with dopamine and adrenaline. The Matrix did not need to go that hard, but it fracking did. The lobby scene, then the part with a helicopter, I was pooping myself. The Smith fight. Never had an experience like that in the theater since. Story 11. The Thing. The research station at the South Pole has an annual tradition. At the start of the winter over, when they're totally isolated and it's always night, the whole crew gets together and watches The Thing and The Shining back to back. That's exactly the kind of people I could see myself actually being able to spend several months in isolation with. The special effects are amazing. I'd watch a documentary on those. I bought the 4K version, and it came with an hour-plus long documentary that was pretty great. Hells yeah. Happy heroic ending? Frack that smeg. Let's just sit here a while. See what happens. It's really sad that it performed so badly at the box office. The movie is amazing and scared the bejesus out of me when I first watched it. Kept checking under my bed for a spider head. Story 12. Goodfellas. One dog goes one way, the other dog goes the other way, and this guy saying, "What do you want from me?" My absolute favorite mob movie. Everyone talks about Pesci, but Ray Liotta was a perfect sleazeball. What you gonna tell us, tough guy? I'll tell you something. Go and smash your mother. He used a razor, and he used to slice it so thin that it would liquefy in the pan with just a little oil. It was a very good system. Please, treat your garlic with respect. Sliver it for pasta like you saw in Goodfellas. Don't burn it. Smash it with the flat of your knife blade if you like, but don't put it through a press. Bourdain. Story 13. Stand By Me. Thanks for the awards. I've never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Man, does anyone? Perfect casting and nearly line-by-line faithful to Stephen King's novella. I consider it one of his best works, and it was incredibly gratifying to have it done justice on film. I could say much the same for Shawshank, but the body/Stand By Me gets the edge. Odd fact nobody knows or cares about. My brother won a contest held by Levi Jeans to be an extra on the film and meet Stephen King. My brother was 18, but unfortunately my dad was skeptical of the whole thing and took a cash value of $1,800 for it. All they told us was it was a story about young kids that find a dead body. The cash was quickly spent and forgotten, and my brother is still sore about it all these years later. Story 14. Lord of the Rings and Life is Beautiful. Absolutely Lord of the Rings, but in particular, I can watch Fellowship over and over and over. 100% agree. I hadn't read the books at the time I first saw Fellowship in the theater, and I can't overstate the foreboding sense of what is to come that I felt in the time between Frodo inheriting the ring and the four hobbits leaving Bree with Strider. Those 20 minutes or so are amongst my favorite in film history, and the best exposition I believe I've ever seen. I feel it on the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. Literally the greatest opening of a movie ever. Perfect. Story 15. Lilo and Stitch. I can't think of anything else Disney has done that dives deep into a serious life issue with realistic rawness, except Zootopia and a few of the Pixar movies. Lilo is one of the most realistic animated children protagonists with all her little quirks, and you can feel and see how hard Nani is trying to balance sisterhood and parenthood. It also functions well without a villain like an evil step-parent or foster parent. It's just a social services agent who realizes the tragedy of the situation. Even the comedy from the aliens, it successfully balances the tone and allows you to realize the tragedy and rawness of the situation. This and Emperor's New Groove will always be my favorite Disney movies, and their follow-up TV shows were hard to beat, both unfortunately canceled way too soon. The Mummy, 1999. Still remember opening night when my parents went to see it, but left me home with my grandparents because I was too young. 2 years later, I was in the theater opening night for The Mummy Returns. Of course, my dad found a way to show me The Mummy in the months prior. 2 decades later, after literally hundreds of rewatches, I can't think of 2 films in a series I'd rather watch at any given time. Maybe nostalgia has something to do with that. But at least in my eyes, The Mummy, 1999, still stands as the definition of a perfect monster movie. Story 16. Gattaca is a really cool watch. Not for everyone, though. We watched this in school when we were learning about DNA, and I was the only person that loved it. We ran out of time, and because the class was so unenthused, we never finished it. I've never seen the ending to this day, but I loved it. I watched it in high school biology when it first came out. I don't remember if everyone liked it, but frack 'em. I loved it, and just watched it a few days ago. I never saved anything for the swim back, broke my brain, and changed my attitude on how I do certain things in life. Story 17. Jurassic Park, 1993. A true cinematic masterpiece. That score when they first see the dinosaurs gets me every time. My fave is the shot when Dr. Grant, Ellie, and the kids are rescued by the T-Rex. It turns around and roars as the dinosaurs ruled the Earth banner falls down around it. That was my laptop background for the longest. What an awesome shot. Story 18. I really like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Aside from Jack and Nurse Ratched, Cheswick, Sidney Lassick, Harding, William Redfield, and Billy, Brad Dourif, all gave incredible performances, with Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd playing lesser roles, no less. Brad Dourif broke my heart in that movie. He was so good as Billy. Story 19. 12 Angry Men, 1957. Somehow, a movie about 12 guys arguing in a closed room is absolutely riveting. I was going to say this, but you beat me to it. And after being on a jury myself, I think it's one movie that everyone should watch. It's a great analysis on human behavior and different perspectives in a relatable situation with real-life consequences. Amazing movie. 11 out of 10. Story 20. Clue, 1985. One of the funniest movies I've watched, and I still quote it in regular interactions. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Every cook will tell you that. But look what happened to the cook. He threatened, in public, to unalive her. Why would he unalive her in public? Story 21. Terminator 2. 11 out of 10. Would go back in time to watch it for the first time again. Still blows my mind that it's 4 years older than me watching it nowadays. Best movie of all time. That would be a good sequel. Arnold going back in time not to save John Connor, but to watch a decent movie before they messed it up with all the sequels. Story 22. One of my favorite movie jokes is in there. Twin Pine Mall turning into Pine Mall when Marty returns to a use he ran over one of the pines in the past. Lone Pine Mall. The farmer yells, "Summer crew, you unalived a pine!" Brilliant to call just a bit more attention to that, as opposed to simply the visual of him running over the tree. Story 23. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Who are you who are so wise in the ways of science? Listen, strange one-liners lying in comment sections is no basis for a system of upvotes. Supreme internet power derives from a mandate of the masses, not some farcical upvote ceremony.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.